before we go, before she gets into the nitty-gritty, I'd like to, if everyone should have an evaluation form at their spot. If you could please fill that out, and you can just turn it over, and I'll collect them at the end. Restrooms are located down this hallway. If anyone wants to use the restroom, there's coffee and hot water and tea over there. And I think that's it. Welcome.
Thank you. Hi everyone. How's it going? I like to get a sense of the room because we're small enough. So, how many of you are classroom teachers? How many of you work in museums? I think does that cover everyone? Excellent. That's a great bridge. Any elementary school? Mostly middle school? Middle school? High school. And art teachers? Any other subject area teachers?
Go ahead.
English.
Oh, English.
English, great. Okay. Good. And then museum folks, are all of you in the education department? Where are you?
Information technology.
Oh, cool. Great. And anyone else? I think that's covering everyone. Okay, great. Just like to know my audience. My name is Kristen Smith, and I am the project director for the Big Picture Educator Enrichment Program, which I'll tell you about in just a second. And today we're going to be addressing this Common Core, which for us in North Carolina may not exist anymore. So it's a bit of a fluid decision-making thing across the United States, but I still think that there are some incredibly relevant things happening with the Common Core. So even in our creation of professional development, we still have discovered that even if Common Core goes away, we're going to have relevant conversations. So I have never used this fancy thing. Oh, good. That. It's kind of mission impossible, right? This is our museum. Has anyone been to North Carolina? And no. Okay, so no one's been to North Carolina. You have.
Not museum.
But not to the museum. Okay. We are the state's museum, so it creates interesting possibilities, but incredible challenges as well, because our mission is to serve the entire state. And we are free, so like the Toledo Museum of Art, we get that. I think that's just a great opportunity to get even more of the community involved. We're a giant campus. We have a park that has art within the park, trails that connect us to Raleigh, so Greenway trails. And then 2 buildings. There's an older one and this newer one that has won some great architectural awards, but also a lot of people think it looks like a chicken coop. But this houses our permanent collection, and the other building houses a variety of traveling exhibitions and education studios. And so we have a lot going on within the building. But again, we're there to serve the state. So, yes, and oops, how do I go back?
There's a real on this side. If you go down here to the corner.
It doesn't matter. Okay, I'll just double that. Okay, so what that previous screen said is that the Big Picture is a grant-funded program. North Carolina GlaxoSmithKline has given us funds to serve and explore professional development for 5 years, serving educators across the state. So I want you all to understand the context of what I'm going to give you information for. What I'm going to be sharing with you today is information that we provide to teachers K through 12, all subject areas, focused on integrating the arts into their curriculum. So we're speaking to an incredibly broad range of educators: science, math, lots of English, guidance, history. And the goal of the grant is to provide quality professional development to that audience in a variety of forms. So we have a bunch of different delivery systems that we've created for this 5 years. We do expos that are across the state, so we build community capacity around the state, and these are big events, kind of the size of this, that brings teachers together and allows us to share our resources, but also celebrate them as teachers and honor their profession. We do workshops on-site and off-site, so things we love having people come to the museum, because there's nothing like being at a museum, but we also know that when you're deep in Ashe County of North Carolina, you're not going to be able to get there. So we go to them, so we use our funds to bring workshops to counties, regions, schools, and those are primarily free. So the sustainability of our grant is something to consider. We're trying to build up as much community and capacity that when we are continuing without the grant, we have other ways of continuing delivery systems. Fellowships we offer to educators that are interested in exploring arts integration more deeply, so they get a year-long fellowship. We support them through a mentorship and a stipend that allows them time to plan, time to collaborate, time to explore, integrating the arts into their curriculum. Webinars, student exhibitions at the museum, so that's really our outcome. What is this looking like in the classroom? We get student work to then come into the education exhibition hallways, and then our RNC website, which I'll share with you in a sec. That's all it's right. Okay. The one thing, we've been doing different programs with arts integration with teachers for quite a while. We started with Art of Collaboration, which focused specifically on middle school integration and working with whole school teams. So we would go in for an entire year with the school, and we gained so much knowledge from that time that we worked with team planning and different subject areas, and where to meet teachers in their ability to find relationships and confidence and capacity to bring art into their classroom. And so really some of the key things that we feel makes arts integration successful is that ability to collaborate, that time to collaborate. So we are pushing for those conversations. So we're trying to help bridge those conversations to happen. And the other is building visual literacy. And so getting teachers comfortable with knowing that they don't have to be an art historian, they don't have to work in a museum, that access to images is something that they are capable of doing themselves. So it's really about building confidence and providing opportunities and make connections. So we developed this list of concepts, this idea of teaching through big ideas, teaching through big themes, to help bridge a science teacher talking to an arts teacher or an English teacher talking to a history teacher. Let's start with this big idea, this big theme, this big concept that we want to explore in a unit or over the year. And where do we find commonality? Where do we find connection? If we're both looking at place, how do you teach it in your classroom? How do I teach it in my classroom? What are some shared vocabulary we could use? What's some shared image we could use? What are some shared making that we could use? So it's really a way to get that conversation started. So everything that we do within the big picture is sort of focused on that concept, and we'll do a little bit more with concepts towards the end of this workshop. But so today we're going to go through possibly some things that you're already familiar doing, but I'll show you how we help teachers see how that fits into their classroom and to justify how it fits into their classroom. So looking at those text and language intersections with works of art from our collection specifically, really looking at those Common Core anchor standards for literacy and reading and writing and seeing how those relate to those strategies that we would teach teachers to use in their classrooms. And consider strategies that will help students think through, think about, and think with pictures. And then I'll provide some follow-up tools and resources. So let's hear your definition of visual literacy. We're at a giant conference where we keep talking about it, but this is something that we ask teachers. If I ask a science teacher, or I ask an English teacher, or I ask a math teacher what they think visual literacy is, I'm always curious. So I'm just curious. Let's just throw out a few ideas of what visual literacy is.
To receive or understand meaning through images, or to create personal meaning through images.
So to receive or understand meaning through images, and then to create personal meaning. To create meaning.
I know for my class it's to draw inspiration and use visual literacy as a talking point. So looking at an image and figuring out how we can communicate what we see, and whether it's through writing or whether it's through creating something additional.
Okay, so using the image as inspiration for communication, to spur conversation or to spur your own ability to create something from it. Yep.
And in connection too with their definitions, in my course, it's also learning how to observe, to be a really active observer so that you can look for those details and then begin to make connections and be able to express and talk about those connections and what you conclude.
Okay, so observation being that linchpin of taking your time to do that, or else you're not getting as deep as you need to. Yeah.
The ability to use images to represent other students.
The ability to use images, what you were saying is what I think we're all saying. So it's that bridge of those, of being able to look, but also being able to make, that we're always, for me, I'm always struggling with teachers of how to take them through, especially if they're not an art teacher, how to give them the support they need to be able to help students read images and to help students make images. So you've got the staple, if you go to 21st Century Skills website, their definition is that through visual literacy, students must be able to interpret, recognize, appreciate, and understand information presented through visible actions, objects, and symbols, natural or man-made. I think this doesn't speak as much as to the making, as what I always find. I do love this one. This is honestly from Wikipedia, but I really love some of the language that they use in here: interpret, negotiate, and make meaning from. I just love that language. So based on the idea that pictures can be read and that meaning can be communicated through a process of reading. And that's really where I'm making some of my strongest connections today with the Common Core Anchor Standards for Literacy, is what we're defining as text and what we need to teach students to be able to read a text. So again, why visual literacy? Within the Common Core, there's a set of these 21st century skills, and visual literacy is one of those specific skills. Now, when you are teaching students to read works of art and to make works of art, you're not only building their capacity to be visually literate, but you're also teaching them to critically think creatively. If you want, they're collaborating, they're communicating, they're having to address being flexible in their thoughts and ideas, take initiative in their own voice, build some social skills to be able to take critical feedback, to give critical feedback. If they're not on task, then they won't produce. So understanding all of these other capacities all happen so eloquently in the artwork. So not only gaining visual literacy skills. So just a brief overview of the Common Core. This is, again, what we're sharing with teachers when we are presenting this kind of information to them. Common Core, and we started doing this when it really unrolled itself. And a lot of schools were at different places in where they were with the Common Core. And so we gave a very sort of brief synopsis that Common Core is more of a focus on skills than a skill building than on content. So there is a progression of skills that you are gaining in K through 12, and these standards of skills as well that everyone is sharing. So Common Core is focused on math, ELA, and literacy and history, social studies, science, and technical subjects, which leaves out a lot of other subject areas. But at the same time, we're sort of brought into the loop, those of us that are art and foreign language, and even health and phys ed, in this sense that we're all sharing these anchor standards for reading and writing. That's being taught everywhere. So how does that look in all of these other classes if we're all needing to address this? So we've tried to take the language that appears in the anchor standards and make it accessible for everyone. So let's brainstorm as a group things that you need to read. How do you read?
Phonics.
You need to know phonics.
Vocabulary.
You need to know vocabulary.
Left to right.
You need to know the order in which you read, and in our culture, it's left to right.
We're talking reading books.
I left it very broad.
Drawing meaning.
You need to be able to draw meaning from whatever it is that you're reading from the text.
Someone saying you need to know the alphabet.
You'll need to know all of those bits. You'll need to know the alphabet so that you understand that letters go together to form a word, phonics, to be able to pronounce those words.
Then the, like the punctuation symbols and
The grammatical.
stop or, yeah.
Right? So that you can move your way through. So you need to understand the structure. take it in, right? So maybe your eyes or maybe your fingers.
Empathy, so understanding what the author, what if you're reading a painting, what the artist was trying to get across, or what that artist or author's gone through.
Okay.
So the ability to understand why something was written.
So building the capacity to empathize with characters or a place or whatever is contained within the text to make those relationships. Yeah.
The ability to compare it to something you know.
So having that capacity to either be asked to make connections or for yourself to be interested in making connections to either something you previously learned or something within yourself or something that you're going to learn. So that making connections.
The availability of text.
You need to have access to things to read.
You usually need a teacher, someone to teach you.
Yeah, you need someone to guide you in the process of reading. It doesn't just happen magically, right? Think about some other things just for you yourself when you read. How do you read?
Concentration.
You need concentration. What helps with concentration?
Distractions, a good setting.
Environment, time, space, all those things to help you focus and do all those other things that we were saying you need to be able to read.
Interest as well.
Interest, a desire to want to do it.
Confidence.
Confidence in your ability to read so that you're making choices that are at your level and your interest as well.
Maybe purpose.
Purpose. Why am I reading? Is it pleasure? Is it the newspaper and I'm trying, sorry, I'm on my media source, to understand the political debates that are happening. So what's my purpose for reading? That's going to change the way that I'm reading and the way my brain is working. Those are really good answers. And I want you to think about how many of those answers are in the domain of more traditional text and how many of them are in the domain of a broader sense of what a text really looks like. So is a text just a book, or can a text be a work of art, a map, film, a play, maybe even a dance, right? So are all of those things still, you might change the language a bit, maybe it's not phonics, but it becomes parts of the vocabulary that we need to understand. So just thinking about how literacy in all of its capacity sort of looks in these different areas. Okay, so we are going to go through a few strategies that are specifically looking at reading visual art. So how do you read a work of art, and how can an art object be considered a text? Some of these, again, you may have done, but we're just going to, I think, learning strategies, even I've seen people do the same strategies over and over again. It's so much fun. Okay, so this very first one, I think is the one that everyone has probably, well, I don't know, I'm being very presumptuous, aren't I? Visual thinking strategies, VTS. Phil Ganowin is here. How many of you have participated in VTS before? A few of you, okay, good. The museum folks. I forget, were you a teacher, classroom teacher? Yeah.
I was a classroom teacher, art teacher.
Okay. Okay, so good. This will be fun. Tell me what is going on in this picture.
It's noisy because I see that big bolt of lightning in the sky, and I also think it's windy. So I think that because I see like I don't know, it's windy. The clouds. Well, I don't know how the fabric on top of that in front of the horse looks like it might be shifted over and blown a little bit. But mostly that lightning, it's just noisy and it's probably cold too.
Okay, so so what she's seen is an image that is making a lot of her senses come alive, and one is the sounds that she would hear. And she thinks that this image would be really noisy, specifically because she sees this giant lightning bolt, and you're thinking that thunder might be rumbling through. But then she's also feeling this wind, and that specifically this cloth right here seems to maybe be whipped up a little bit by the wind. What else do you see?
There's a sense of urgency. The clouds you can kind of see the clouds are shifting in. It's not just a black sky. They're slowly infringing on the happy clouds. Water looks like it's rising. They've dropped a pot, which if you really did care about your belongings and were taking time to pack up and move out, you wouldn't be throwing things about. If you just look at how things are placed in the cart themselves, it's not a neat, organized fashion. It's just almost like they're throwing things in.
Okay.
So just a sense of urgency in it.
And let's just review what she says. So she is getting a sense of this really need to move quickly, to pack up and get out quickly, and things are falling out because they're packing up so quickly. And you're seeing water, is what you pointed out, seems to be, did you say rising?
Yeah, it almost looks like it. I mean, there's a house just kind of floating on the water, so you can almost assume that, okay, maybe there's a flood coming, because that house is already up to the door with water, and then if you look at the ground, it's all smushy already, so maybe the
So she's
water's
saying a lot. There's a smushiness in here, the water rising up to this house, so there seems to be a flood happening or about to happen, and the sense that the shifting of the clouds as well is pushing things to maybe make them, something's coming on fast, and that's going to make them be even faster. So a sense of urgency and all of those clues to support that.
But is there certainty that it's not that something that they're coming back and they're unpacking and the things are floating, that pot had floated out of the house? I mean, the only thing that maybe prompts me to think they're packing is the position of that man's arm, but that could be unpacking. I mean, they could be coming back after it all happened.
Okay, so another idea is that it's over, and now they're unpacking, that the flood has gone, and the storm is moving out, and that they're unpacking. But it's not quite sure because there's not enough clues to let us really get a sense of at what point we're in.
If the flood were impending, I think it would look like it was raining, and it doesn't look like it's raining. It looks like it either has rained or it hasn't started yet. Because the ground, I don't get a sense of the ground being wet as much as just kind of mushy, like it's already been, there are tracks of the water that have already made, the wheels are already stuck in the mud, but nobody looks like clothes are sticking to them. They're getting wet. You might expect like to see some water in the bucket there, but it was empty.
So her observations again are on the timing of this. At what point in this storm, this flood are we? And she is noticing clothes don't seem to be sticking at them, so it hasn't just rained. Water doesn't seem to have collected in the mud in the bucket, but the earth is swollen with some sort of water, so at some point it has rained, but it's not currently raining. Yes.
Also, maybe if it were, I mean, I can't tell, just going, I don't know the story, the backstory, but maybe if they were running away from something, the horses would be, instead of going towards the flood or the water, the opposite direction. Because I mean, who knows what's in the middle ground, but
So she's focusing on this little clue of the horses and which direction they are and what that might tell us as to whether they're pulling out, pulling in, where they're headed as a crew. What else is going on?
I'm kind of struck by the instability of their lives, that they can unpack, even if, because that was a new concept to me when someone brought up maybe they're unpacking. I thought, oh my gosh. But you know, the fact that they can pack, unpack, throw I'm intrigued by the stove getting thrown in there, and I keep thinking, my gosh, can you imagine living like that, having your lives be so connected to the capriciousness of nature, you know? Oh no, there's a flood coming, we gotta pack up and get out. Okay, it's over, now we can go back in. Oh, man.
So you're really focusing on the way they're living their lives and what kind of individuals they are and
Yeah, I'm
how
going
they're
right brain here. What's
able
the
and how they're able to pack up and know to pack up and have the opportunity to and know what things need to go and what things need to stay. And that I think you're almost saying that they seem to know what they're doing. I don't know, maybe I'm jumping.
I don't know, I'm just struck by the instability, how their lives are just kind of like.
That there's not a security of place, that nature is making an impact on how they live.
And how people lived in that time period, that's pretty much how they, live.
Right. What else is going on?
And the house is on a slope.
Yeah, I just noticed that.
From the ground, yeah.
Just noticed that.
So clearly, it was built with the knowledge that water is going to be the issue.
So there's a choice to build here with the knowledge of knowing that this area is going to flood, building on your idea of what type of life this is in this area. What else do you see?
And when, it was you that was, interested in the horses, and I was watching them too, and I thought, it's kind of interesting because I'm looking at their ears, and if they were agitated, the ears might be back, but instead the ears are pricked up, they're aware, but they don't seem, you're right, they don't seem agitated, they seem more like, woo, sorry.
Okay.
Like,
Well,
this is part of the ball game, this is part of what, because the horses are always probably part of the program of moving in or moving out. So they're aware, but they're not agitated, they're not.
And that's actually a decent time to start. This kind of a conversation, I try to keep to about 10 to 15 minutes, which BTS can go on for an entire class period. A conversation about a work of art in the galleries or in a classroom is really dependent on the group. It's a very fluid discussion. And really you as the facilitator are asking these three questions. What's going on in this picture? What do you see that makes you say that? And what more can we find? You as a group were incredibly good at supporting your ideas with evidence from the text. When I often do this with teachers, what can happen is, and when you do it with students as well, is that they will say, it looks like they're in a hurry. So my role as the facilitator is to follow up with, well, what do you see that makes you say that? What do you see in this work of art that looks like they're in a hurry? And then I'm asking you to support your ideas and support your opinion with evidence from the text, this being the text. I didn't want this slide to come up so quickly because I really wanted to ask you guys to think about what I did as a facilitator. The other thing that I didn't do was provide content, right? I have not told you anything about this work of art yet. How did we come to the meaning together of this work of art?
Building on each other's conversation.
We built on each other's ideas. And how did I help facilitate that?
Restating previously mentioned opinions about what's going on to contrast or compare them to what the next person has said.
I repeat back what everybody says. All ideas, no matter how they are stated, how they are presented. And the set of three questions allows you to make students or visitors own their opinions and ideas. So what do you see that makes you say that? I see an alien in the sky. Well, what do you see that makes you say that? Does someone else see something else? Right, so I don't have to say, no, you don't. There's no alien. Maybe you really do see an alien. And I would like to know, how do you, we are all bringing our own experiences and our own knowledge to a work of art. And so I want to validate everyone's ideas, and I want to find out more, because you will teach me more through your eyes. And so that's one of the lovely things about this kind of discussion strategy is that, Everyone is validated. Everyone is building ideas on top of each other. And I can, this is on VTS's home site. This is taken directly from their website. Visual Understanding has a beautiful website, videos of other teachers using it. But this is what they provide. The other thing that you saw me doing is that I pointed, right? So it's really important for me to repeat back. I'm validating, but I'm also making sure that what you said is what I'm hearing you properly. And I repeat it back and I paraphrase a little. But I'm going to point to the area because I want to make sure that everyone is hearing what was just said and really seeing that point in the painting or in the work of art, in the text. It doesn't have to be just a painting. And then I try and link and frame everyone's comments. It's really hard to not. I've done this, I've talked about this work of art with so many groups. And every group there's so many things you guys didn't talk about that other groups do. And if I let us talk longer, we can get to that stuff. But there definitely has to be a point, especially in the classroom, where you have to stop the conversation, but now you're engaged, and now you want to learn more about when this was, and if I start to then talk about a concept, say power or conflict, we're going to get more connected to not only the image, but the connections that we were making ourselves. It's just going to be a richer connection, rather than me going, this is, I'm forgetting his name right now, Thomas Hart Benton. This is Thomas Hart Benton's painting, done in 1943. It's called Spring on the Missouri, and I want you all to see this, and this. Now we're going to talk about how natural disasters hit North Carolina, and we're going to make connections. I mean, it can happen, but now we're more invested. So that's some of the content stuff now, if you want to know about his work. Any questions about this strategy? It's something that it's not everyone's favorite. It definitely, you have to give up time, and you have to give voice to your students to allow what will come out, because you can build up to it. You can start small and build. I think one of the challenges also is that not everyone may talk, which isn't such a bad thing, because some of us are just prefer to listen. But you can ask students to work in smaller groups, or you can have them write and answer some of the questions before a larger conversation. So there's different ways to scaffold this kind of a strategy. Yeah.
Do teachers immediately see the connection between, like, the idea that the artwork is the text then?
So that's the next, I think it's the next slide, if I had it in the right, yeah. So, when I'm talking to English and science and history teachers, and we look at this idea of literacy being read closely to determine what the text says explicitly and make logical inferences from it. Did we do that in that discussion? Absolutely. We made a ton of inferences. We looked very closely. We cited specific textual evidence to support our ideas and our claims. So that is one of the key parts. And I'm going to, actually, I think there's enough people here that I'll give you guys, if you don't mind just passing those around. I have a cheat sheet that I'm going to share with you all. Another one of the components of the anchor standards for Common Core reading is that ability to determine central ideas or themes of a text and analyze their development and summarize those key supporting details and ideas. Now, when those started to percolate, did we identify them? Not yet, but if that's the goal, you're going to have a particular theme that you are going to want to explore, and so that's going to percolate through this discussion. And then it's going to be easier for you to draw out those connections after you've had this conversation. Oops. Okay. On your sheet, I'm going to come to this. No, I'll come to that slide later. We're going to do another one. So in this, does everyone have something to write on? I'm looking, it seems like everyone does. If anyone does not, I have some paper. Yeah, we're all. Okay. I would like you to take 1 minute to write down all of the nouns that you see in this work of art.
I don't know how to phrase them.
Okay. Let's go ahead and share some of the nouns, and we're just going to sort of popcorn say. Who would like to start?
Earrings.
Earrings.
Bird.
Bird.
Elephant.
Elephant.
It's up in the middle. You can see its little tusks.
What else? Frog.
Turtle.
Turtle.
Braids.
Braids.
Koi fish.
Koi fish.
Lily.
Lily pad.
Lizard.
Lizard thing. Lizard thing.
I don't know what that is on the bottom.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was trying to figure that out too.
Lizard thing.
Dress. Dress.
Dress.
Hands.
Hands.
Church or schoolhouse?
Church or schoolhouse.
Chair.
Chair.
Breasts?
Breasts. Will students say that?
Yes.
Pattern.
Pattern.
Lips.
Lips. Keep going.
Fingers.
Fingers.
Nose.
Body parts.
Yeah.
Pockets.
Pockets.
Fingernails.
Fingernails.
Colors. Sorry. Colors.
Colors.
The crisscross of the overalls echoes the crisscross of the arms.
Is she jumping ahead?
Am I jumping
She
ahead?
is. How can you say that in one noun?
Crisscross
Cross?
shape.
Cross.
Cross shape, X shape.
Overalls.
Overalls, yeah,
Overalls.
overalls, there we go.
Or overlap.
Well, that's not a.
No.
Yeah.
No, I know.
It's not a noun.
Is it? It is.
Overlap is a noun. It's a person, place, or thing.
But you can have an overlap.
You can have an overlap.
It's a thing. Ripple.
Ripple.
I want a dictionary. Somebody look that up.
I say rhythm.
Rhythm.
Highlight.
Highlight.
Sparkle.
Sparkle. Let's get two more.
Light.
Light.
Thinking like icon or a beacon somehow.
Okay, good. All right, I'd like you to take 1 minute to write down as many adjectives as you see in this work of art, and do not list all of the colors that you see.
Separate from all the nouns and connected with the noun.
They can be separate. If you enjoy writing adjectives for each of the nouns, you can do that. I'm not putting any structure on it. We're loose right now. hear some adjectives.
Honorable,
I heard two at the same time.
honorable,
Honorable, and then
Repetitive?
repetitive,
Yeah.
repetitive,
symmetrical,
symmetrical,
Shiny.
shiny,
shapely,
shapely,
Mark.
dark, still,
pretty,
pretty,
Solemn.
solemn,
Mysterious.
mysterious,
Quiet. Seems
Quiet.
quiet.
Juxtaposed.
juxtaposed,
Elongated,
elongated,
braided,
braided,
exaggerated,
exaggerated.
Earthy. I can't get earth.
Oh, what did we say? Did you say earthy? Yeah, earthy. Okay, this is good. I'm gonna stop us there. So number one, you just generated a really exciting list, right? I would probably not, if I were in the classroom, I would have this visible. And we originally developed this kind of an entry point into a work of art for an ESL workshop that we were doing, and the feedback that we got from our ESL and ELL teachers was, don't even start with parts of speech. Just say, what words do you see in this work of art? Then you can break it up and start to play and categorize. But you can take this list of words, you can shuffle these words around in all kinds of interesting ways, but what we're gonna do is I'm gonna ask you, what has the artist done to show us juxtaposed?
A lot of the elements in here as far as color are very dark, but then there's just like the dresses on the bottom, or the little white, it almost looks like a little head up on the left. There's just pops of bright color.
So you see juxtaposition in different colors. So, and I think you also were saying dark and light, and bright and dull. So juxtaposition in darks and lights. So light in here, and then some darker areas back here, but bright and then duller colors. Okay? Yeah.
And juxtaposition in male versus female.
Okay. So we've got the men in overalls, we're assuming, because we're seeing the backs of them, and the women in dresses, so we know that we've got male and female. Some of the nouns that you didn't say either. Man, woman.
how do you,
Go ahead.
I was just curious, I didn't know that, how do you know there's men and women?
Well, and I was just saying, you can't really tell because it's the back. You're assuming through what they're wearing, I think is where most people are making the gender connection, that men are wearing overalls. Oh, don't say something good. And women are wearing dresses,
And the women on the sides.
are obviously women.
Yes, those
Because of
definitely have gone out.
Sorry?
Yeah, those are definite, the other ones, I thought it was purposefully,
Ambiguous?
yeah, because, not a lot of hippiness or anything going on in a lot of women.
And that's an interesting observation because hairstyles are somewhat similar too. The women do have a slightly different ridge to the braid and a different style of the braid, if those are the women. And the men have a different patterning as well, so it's taking us in a different conversation, but that juxtaposition. Anything else that you see that's juxtaposed?
It almost looks like they're standing in water, and if you look back into the distance, it almost looks like cornfields.
Okay,
So just the element of setting.
right, and place of two places that may not seem like they would fit together, but are. So this watery, swampy bottom land where there's all these crocodiles and frogs and turtles and lizards, possibly juxtaposed to farmland with a schoolhouse and a church. How did the artist achieve a sense of quiet or still?
Just the general sense of solidarity. Like, there are definitely all pulling in the same direction there.
And what are some things that you see that the artist has done to give a sense of solidarity of them together?
It's like the frame.
The framing of these
Yeah.
two larger,
And they're united, I mean, everybody is embracing somebody.
yep, everyone is embracing that overlapping, that crossing that we were seeing.
Eyes are closed.
Eyes are closed, which also enhances that sense of quiet, of still,
And there's order. There's always order.
which seems to bring the chaos down, right? There's we've said all these other words as a repetition, a pattern that gives a sense of order to this composition.
There's rippling in the water, but it's almost like a gentle movement in the water instead of rapid waves. It's just kind of, I'm subtly moving in the water.
So I'm going to stop us there just in consideration of time. But this is a rich, rich, rich work of art that you can continue talking about. This is Thomas Biggers. He's from North Carolina. He actually created this piece in the 90s. I feel like we could have had just a continued conversation to start to dig out the meaning of this. But he is definitely, his work is about the conversation of African roots and African identity in America. And so how are these two places coming together in one space? And so this is a fascinating work of art to talk to all age groups because everyone responds with community and a sense of gathering, and there's something spiritual or ritualistic happening. And it's just a really rich piece. So we call this strategy nouns and adjectives. Fancy, right? And really, it's just, for a lot of teachers, this is a really low stakes entry point to talk about a work of art. You are demystifying a lot of things. You're not asking anyone to come up with an interpretation right away. You're just asking them to list what they see. Then we start to unpack it for meaning and begin to analyze it and interpret it. But really starting off without a conversation, it becomes very individual at first, and then we can take that individual list and start to have a larger conversation about it. The point that connects to the Common Core is what you do with the list, the conversation that you have after the list, going back to the work of art and doing the same thing that we did with BTS. What is the artist doing to help us see what we see? So how has the artist arranged this text to help us see that? How are we able to cite evidence from the text for meaning, the meaning that we just made?
What was the title of the?
This is untitled. Yeah. But I'll share with you our website, which has this on it as well. We're not going to have time for this one, but another opportunity that you have is to then compare these two works of art through however you choose to compare. We like to do it through a concept. So how do you see power communicated through these two works of art? And we can have a conversation about how has each artist addressed a concept of power. And it's very different in each one. But we're getting to see how one idea can be presented in multiple ways. So that comes down to another Common Core standard, which is analyze how two or more texts address similar themes or topics in order to build knowledge or to compare approaches that the artist takes. So on the little yellow sheets that I gave you, there's a gentleman by the name of Tom, or is it Tim? Shanahan. I think it's Tom Shanahan, that was part of the creation of the Common Core that helped to simplify the bulk of language that is in the Common Core. Within those anchor standards for reading and in the anchor standards for writing, there's these 9 little core areas that you're focused on, and we looked at some of those already when we were addressing what we were doing in each of the strategies. But really what those first 3 strategies that, or those first 3 standards focus on key ideas and details. What does the text say? So when we're reading the work of art, we are doing that. We are asking students to observe and identify what they see. How does the text say it? Craft and structure. How did the artist accomplish that? What did the artist do to help us understand what it says? So by asking them to provide evidence, to ask them to identify the different parts that relate to a theme, or so if you're trying to talk about mood, or you're trying to talk about a larger concept like power, how is the artist helping us to, how is the text saying it? And then that integration of knowledge and ideas. What does the text mean? What is its value? How does the text connect to other texts? This is the magic of what happens in the classroom. This is where the artist, or the teacher, helps to bridge whatever text you are examining to this larger unit that you're studying. So the teacher as facilitator to help students to then make those broader connections. So text, we just saw, happens with a work of art, but text can happen, like we said, text can be a map, a piece of music, a piece of poetry, a newspaper article, all of those different possibilities. I just went back. So some of the things that we do visual thinking strategies. We also do See, Think, Wonder, which is from Harvard Project Zero. An approach, if we have more time, I'd do that. What do you see? What does this work of art make you, or actually it's what do you see? What do you think about that? What does this work of art make you wonder? And then the nouns and adjectives, and we have a whole slew of others. So there's all these different strategies that you use with a work of art to allow students to think through that work of art and make connections to. And then these are just some Bloom's taxonomy words. How many of you are Bloom's taxonomy folks? Yeah, right? So I know in North Carolina, our art teachers are under pressure. We have a new, it's called assessing student work, or it's a portfolio process in which it's very tied into Bloom's taxonomy. So, oh, here we go. So this is the Senate results from North Carolina. So being able to read that textual information, maybe a map to our museum, being able to read that textual information. Now, of course, certain strategies work with certain texts, right? If I were to ask you, what's going on in this picture? Would it be that rich of a conversation? Not so much. Maybe this is what do you see? How do we navigate this space? But what's going on in this text is a really interesting conversation to have. So depending on where your state falls, but figuring out what's going on there. List of other texts that would relate to Common Core as well. We also like to make connections to the Common Core Anchor Standards for writing. Think about if you're teaching art. Are you asking students to, so take out writing and put creating, put key ideas and details into your work of art. Understand the craft of being an artist. Put knowledge and ideas into your work of art and do a range of different works of art. So we have our standards in the art room, but we are achieving the Common Core naturally. So there's a natural overlap. You're not needing to do extra work because that literacy is happening in the art room because that's what happens in the art room. You're also getting speaking and listening when you do these discussion-based strategies because you're asking students to listen to each other, build on ideas of each other. Again, another part of the Common Core. So these inquiry-based learning strategies where we're asking questions, building on ideas, are all beautifully overlapping with these Common Core Anchor Standards for reading and literacy. Okay. What time am I done? 11:40. I'm just so bad at timing. Terrible teacher. So bad at time. All the time. Worst. We'll try and see what we can get done in 10 minutes. What do I want to do that's most relevant to this time? You know what I'll do? I'll do this.
Because
So
you have the room until 11:40.
I know, but I'd like to stay to the So one tool that we provide teachers is this, we have an online tool that is about concept mapping. And so It's a lesson planning tool where you can drag and drop images into sort of a blank screen and then build off of one concept idea and think about ways to connect to it. So we've really thought concept-based learning is such a great opportunity, and I think I've already justified this, of how it overlaps across curriculum. So it's really a way to organize and make sense of your learning, that you're having this thread that's going through. So what I'm going to have us do is I'm going to, let's put you into, we can do small groups. I think we'll just do groups of 2 to make it more efficient. So I'll have you 2 go together, and I'll have you 2 go together. You 2, have you 2 go together, and you 2 go together. And what I would like you to do is I'm going to give you a concept, and I'd like you to create a map. So you're going to put the concept in the middle, and then around that concept, I want you to write down everything that you associate with that concept. Images, things you teach in the classroom, questions you might ask students. You can make it relevant to what you teach and what you do, or you can make it broad. It's really about exploding the idea. So we'll take 5 minutes. No, you can look at it. Yeah. Yeah. Do you want
Do you want us to write?
Web out.
put your word in the middle, and then, so that, I can't go back. Word in the middle, the idea of branching off from.
Would you like to write? Or would you like to write?
Oh, I see.
Yeah, I'm a museum person. I work in the National Museum of Mexican Art in Chicago. Yeah, and I work mostly training teachers. So this is very interesting.
Oh, yeah. She's got a lot of
Yeah,
cool
yeah.
things for you to do.
Yeah.
That's cool.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
You're a teacher?
Yeah, I'm a teacher. I taught public school for 30 years, then I retired, and now I'm teaching at the university level, and I'm also getting my degree in rhetoric.
Oh, wow.
So, I mean, this is so much fun. Because I utilized this museum at least 10 times bringing my students up. They are wonderful. I've had so many students come up with some really cool essays, their analyses of their works.
That's great. Yeah, this is an amazing resource. I love this museum.
Oh my gosh, the people here are so helpful. Well, we don't have markers, so I guess we'll just go ahead and.
Okay.
I'm gonna draw a home because I'm thinking home place.
I can keep writing. Go ahead and keep writing.
Yeah, no,
I keep looking at you know, I think of this like moment what I do is like contested spaces, like the border country, because like a lot of our work talks about the U.S. versus the border. So I'm like thinking of like whose place is it? Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm
Can you
thinking
draw
of.
like that border? Because that's
Like a
interesting.
border.
Like how do you envision this?
I'm drawing those like metal fences that they have.
Yeah.
Does it have to be one word?
I want a contrast to home place.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of a classroom.
Maybe it's how do you define
Your
it?
place in the
What
classroom.
questions would you challenge students
Like your role.
to think about
Place that
through
you
that
involve.
concept?
How would you define it?
You have a class, you have a teacher,
Where do you
you have
see
a
it?
student who has a place in a classroom.
That's good.
And this is an orderly classroom. What would your place be in a classroom that's a little bit more non-traditional? And it could be a good thing. That's why I'm putting smiley faces on.
Take one more minute.
Okay, interesting.
I'm wondering, like, how does place dictate how you think you're supposed to behave? Like, in a
Yeah.
museum, you're not supposed to talk.
Like a context influences behavior. Behavior. That's good.
I'll do like a place influences behavior. I'll do like a museum sign. That's what they're talking.
We could go very basic.
You should do that typically.
Or a library.
Well, libraries.
Yeah.
People do stuff in libraries today that even 20 years ago.
Someone saying, shh. Get out of the picture.
And I'm really
Or picking
loud.
their nose, possibly.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
Doesn't look very good. All right. Clarify. With text. Yeah. Behavior.
Okay, just go ahead and that. What I'd like you to do now, you can go out together because we're a small enough group. I have a series of images from our collection on the table, and there's multiple copies of each one, so you can each choose the same one if you want. You're not taking someone else's. And I want you to find an image. On the front is just the image, so you could go just from what you see, but if you want to know more about the work, flip it over, and you can read about it on the back. And I want you to find one that matches up with your concept.
Just one.
Just one.
That's
Just one. Yeah, and if you can't agree on one together, that's fine. You can choose two.
How are you doing?
When you get back to your table, I'd like you just to take a few minutes to talk about how you see that concept in the work of art. So some of it might be more obvious, but take a little bit of time to have that conversation.
There's so many coming.
So now you're just going to talk briefly about how you see that concept. And you only have about a minute or two. So how do you see that concept in your work?
I'm so sorry.
Wait a second, so is it,
But if you present again later today, can you? Are you done for
I'm
this?
done. Why?
Oh, I didn't want to.
Oh, I don't care.
So many people don't.
I'm not that frazzled by it. I don't care. I know I act like, woo, but I've had technology completely not come up.
This area then?
Yeah, I'm from Findlay, Ohio, about 40 minutes south of here.
Okay, great.
Where are you from?
Chicago.
Oh, that's right, you're from
Yeah.
Chicago.
Yeah.
Are you originally from Chicago?
I am, yeah. I had moved around a bit, but
It's interesting, though, that the type of museum that you look at, because I thought maybe you had like an ethnic connection, or, like an interest. Do you have like an ethnic connection?
I don't
or
have
an
an
interest?
ethnic connection, but I am fluent in Spanish, and I'm supposed to wear stuff as bilingual. So that's required.
So sorry to keep these conversations short. I'm going to be one more
Chicago
minute.
has
One
like
more
the
minute.
biggest Mexican population in the U.S.
I'm still trying to figure out what's interesting.
It's like 1.4 million. Yeah.
Philly has a pretty large one because we have a lot of Mexicans that come up for migrant work. But, and so we have a lot, but it's really pretty big. For a little town.
Yeah,
It's
no.
large.
They have much more history in the Midwest than people know. Not even just recently. I mean, it's been growing a lot recently, but
Okay.
there have been Mexican workers in the Midwest, which is just like kind of eye-opening. Yeah, to think about. So yeah, we are
Okay,
Mexican.
go ahead and finish up.
Actually,
Sorry.
so it's very
So this is
You're about 30
not something I normally do in 10
minutes.
minutes, but we spent a lot more time on the concept mapping, and we actually scaffold a few things up to it. We play a little Pictionary game. We try and put in a lot of drawing with it as well. So what images? Let's build a visual vocabulary around that concept as well, and then really spending time unpacking concepts, making connections to a work of art. But it leads to really rich connections across subject areas, but then also really rich questions that become driving questions in a unit. So the process of exploring the concept between teachers becomes through art, right? Because we're doing planning and development of ideas through works of art, building in that visual literacy capacity for teachers that may not have thought this way before, leads to really deep results. So I just want to briefly show you what we do, what you can then do online. So we go to all these different parts of the state. We lead small workshops like this, usually an hour to 2 hours, but then we don't want to leave them and never come back. So we have some online resources. They can do the concept mapping tool online, and there becomes a larger community. Where I know for myself, I would have used it to look at other people's concept maps. So you create a portfolio on our website. You can drag and drop images, create a concept map. So you get a list of images, you drag and drop it, you explore the concept around the work of art. You then categorize it by grade level, subject area, give a little description of what you're thinking of planning for your lesson. And then you use it as a lesson plan, you share it with another teacher, or you just keep it as a public space of thinking about this work of art and how it works. So you can explore other people's concept maps, and you can save it into your portfolio. So for a lot of teachers, it's really hard to make that meaning themselves. There's a wall. And so to be able to read what other people have unpacked about a work of art can be really helpful, and using language that's familiar to them. So a history teacher can go in here and filter by history teachers at the 10th grade level and see what other people are thinking. We also have it where you can take images. We got a lot of feedback that people wanted to take their own images and use their own concepts. It's a little, it's good. It's a little, I would love it that if kids could use it, students could use it, but it's not, it's really more for a personal use. But it would be a lot of fun for students to be able to use it and create concept maps around images that they find in the environment that relate to these concepts and create portfolios, or upload their own work and assess their own work within a concept map as well. So all of this is on our website. On our website, there's lesson plans that are so 150 works of art that are curated through a teacher panel, so that the works of art from our collection that teachers like to use most. And they're filtered artist, region, medium, concept, so it's easy to navigate. They're high res, they're copyright permissible, you can put them online, you can print them, do whatever you want with them. Lesson plans are all arts integrated, made by teachers, for teachers. Student learning objectives, Common Core is up there now. Filtered by grade level, subject area, concept. Describes the activities, some assessments, some videos sometimes attached. And then you can create your own portfolio. So when you're navigating the site, you're like, oh, where's that one concept map? You can just save it and put it in. A lot of the things that I talked about today as far as discussion strategies are on this portfolio page as hard copy that you can, or it's digital copy that you can download. So you can find that there. That's not my last, there we go. And then a programs page for things that are coming up. So if you're interested in a webinar that we're doing, but we're really trying to reach out across the state and across the country as well. So we have a blog and a Facebook page, and we're building community capacity in that way. So before you guys all leave, I'd love just a little bit of feedback of what some of your favorite parts of this session were, or the most resonant parts that you might take to your own classroom, how you would apply it.
Yeah, I'm really excited because I teach a primary source essay. I teach writing on the university level, and our first essay is a primary source essay where you have to study a primary source and like a work of art. And I brought my students actually up here this fall. It was really successful. But what I was looking for and hoping to find, and you gave it to me, were some really cool ideas to like warm up students, to teach them how to like read an image. And then the docents up here just pick up the ball and go.
Yes.
And just this year, I mean, I had some really strong pieces, very well developed, lots of good thought and good analysis. So I'm really, really excited. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm just gonna remind people just to fill out your evaluation, and the next session is